This has got to be one of the most beautiful little mongrels I have torn apart in a long time. Holy cow, somebody totally did a grab bag into the engine shenanigan world, shook it up, and made this thing. Well, I can't exactly say this is the most photogenic box I've ever started a engine video with, but it's not what the box looks like that matters. It's what kind of quality we're going to find when we crack this case open. Well, let's see here. What's underneath here? Whoa, there we go. Interesting. So it's this white, snappy everything foam. So they cut corners on that idea. And that looks to be a standard GX200 style starter. That's good. Blue. It's an interesting choice. Now, I ended up with this because I posted up, or at least I commented about in another video, that John and his Predator and his John Deere project is, well, let's just say it's rather used. And so they got a hold of me in order to sponsor putting this in John's John Deere, and that's what we're going to probably do with it. This is pretty nice, solid. That's metal. This is definitely metal. Standard type of GX200 style. I don't know why. Okay, if I pop this off and there is not rubber underneath this, we're going to have a discussion. So let's pop this off. And yep, there's a rubber seal right there. Good. So there are some of these that there's no rubber seal underneath there, and when the rain falls on them, they just pool right here and they drain straight into the carburetor. And the other thing I'm going to point out that I just saw really quick here, see that? It's recessed under that sheet metal. If it comes out flush to it and this gets hit with the rain and stuff like that, it'll just cycle through the muffler into the cylinder and fills your oil full of water. So that's cool to see that that's recessed like it ought to be. And they already have holes that you could easily put a plate in order to shroud it. I like that. That's 2 positives so far. Looks to be 3/4 inch crank, and oh, there's even a key in it. Good for them. A lot of people skimp on putting the key in. Alright, let's get this out of here and crack it open a bit. You know, at first, when I saw this vent coming into here, I was actually kind of like, yeah, that's cool, that's easy to deal with. But then I saw the paper filter right there, right where those gas fumes would be coming in. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think that would survive the gas vapor fumes going through it into the engine? Not sure what I think of that design. On the what the hell were you thinking category, this little thing here, whatever that is, comes over the top of the side panel. You literally cannot take the side panel off without removing the entire intake. That's dumb. The very first thing I'm doing is probably taking a saw and slicing that right square off. No, you lose points on that one, whoever designed that. Anyways, I'm going to pop the exhaust off, pop this off. We'll bring you guys back in a sec when we pop this off, because I'm curious if this is a Ducar 170F variant, because the serial number says 170F, but there's potential it could also be a Rado style version. But usually Ducar leaves some sort of Easter egg inside of the flywheel. What in the world is up with this green? Holy cow, why is it so thick? That's crazy. Okay. Well, on other news, It does have the throttle lockdown with the nut and the throttle lockdown with the nut on the other side for putting into like a go-kart or something. And you can buy this entire plate exactly like this aftermarket now on Amazon. I'll post a link down below. We've got one on the mini bike build that we just finished up with a Duromax on it. But the other thing I was going to point out while I was here was that if you have something like this throttle cable and it's got this nub right here, a lot of people will grind the nub down. But what I do instead is I pop that off and I drill it out so that way I can put this through and lock the nut on the opposite side of the screw. Because you've got adjustability right here. You don't have to be able to adjust this end, and that makes sure nothing can pull out of there. Just my 2 cents. It takes a little extra time and it's a pain in the neck, but I think it's worth it rather than grinding that tip off. When I saw that port, I was like, holy cow, that is a really nice giant port. And then I saw this, and I was like, you know, that looks pretty small. So I mic'd it out at 17.51. Like a stock GX200, Duromax 208, Predator 212, they're all like 19 millimeter. I don't know what this muffler was designed for, but there is no way it was designed for this CC. So I'm betting once you cram a header on this thing, it probably will jump about 3 or 4 sizes in jets for the carburetor, because that's a gargantuan difference. What in the world is up with that? Look, there's like literal chunks taken out of it. Like, that's not what it's supposed to look like. What are you doing? Wait a minute. Let me come over here. We're currently in the middle of working on a economy racing build on this Duromax over here. Like, that is what it's supposed to look like, not like this. Does the PCV valve even work? No. It's solid. It doesn't work. Hear the PCV? Yeah. Quality. Job not so much. Sorry guys, this is a fail. I'll take the style that Duromax uses any day. This is the difference you get as far as costing yourself $50. I mean, this right here is, I believe this is only like $30 or $40 cheaper than the Duromax. But that's the kind of quality differences that you end up finding when you're working on this kind of thing. See, that's why we're tearing this one down. Well, we've got the Duromax we're working on right now. Because the Duromax at the end of the day is based off of a Ducar 212. This right here, there's a really good chance is based off of a Ducar 212. So being able to go back and forth with parts between the two of these is really good for a comparison. Because they're in the same kind of game plan type idea. Like, for example, this is great. This is what should be on the Duromax 208 and the Duromax 212. Or at least some variant of this idea. And it's not. But that's only a $12 difference. But that, and junk like that can fall into your engine, that is the difference between killing your brand new engine versus running for years. That I don't like. Jethro and I both have decided that we need to take a few more points off on the score on this thing because there's nothing for a wiring diagram or anything in that set of directions. So we actually popped this open since it was broken in order to see if it had a rectifier. And that thing that Jethro keeps grabbing onto next to my thumb is a hidden fuse that's not anywhere in the directions that could have just blown and messed everything up. Plus, why is there a hidden fuse there and then a circuit protection there? I can't get over this. Start! I always think that's a riot whenever I see that. This is some sort of weird rubber. It's not hard plastic. It's some sort of rubber compound, but with a solid rubber insert right there. Okay. Well, let's pop this off and let's see if we end up finding anything on here. Now, like I said, usually on most Ducar-based rigs, they normally have an Easter egg. It might end up being underneath this. Let me pop this off first. This is another one of those you get what you pay for. I mean, look at the outside edge of all of this. It's all ratty and grungy. The casting isn't refined. Whereas this is the Ducar 170F that comes on a Duromax. And look at the quality difference. Like if I set those over each other, you can see all the casting imperfections that are in the Max Speed one. That's your extra $50 right there. In the grand scheme of things, running a cement mixer, running a pump, running whatever, that's not going to matter. But quality control adds up over time. Here we go. Make sure that you hold that stupid lash cap so it doesn't run away on you. And what's your prediction? Flat top piston or dished? Here we go. Oh, I was actually rooting for flat top. That is way in the hole. Is that it, top dead center? I thought I had it up to top dead. Yeah, that's definitely in the hole. Let's go ahead and run a caliper on that in order to be able to see whether the throw is actually 55mm like it says it is. And obviously this will double check is actually 70. So I'm by myself, so I can't really do it on camera without a tripod. But basically what you do is you slide the end of the caliper down to the piston at top dead center. You hit 0. You roll the piston all the way down. You extend it, and that's what your throw is. Now, in an engine that's been slightly underachieving, it decided to overachieve on the stroke and put out 55.2 on all 4 attempts to test it, and it's 70 across, which definitely makes it a 212cc. But we got a lot more to figure out, because I know everybody's going to tell me that piston looks exactly like a Predator 212 piston, therefore this must be a Predator clone. Except for the serial number on it starts with DH, which a lot of times ends up being a Ducar. And it also has 170F in the serial number, which is usually a Ducar 212. That's important because what it means is that the crank in a Ducar is the exact same as a Honda and a lot of the other 196 clones, but the pin in the piston is a different size. And so in order to aftermarket them, you have to convert both the piston and the connecting rod. But we won't know till we pop this off. What's our bets where we've seen a few corners cut that ends up being a plastic cam gear? I hope it isn't, but we've seen a few corners cut. Let's find out. Interesting thing, that side cover gasket peeled off perfectly away from the side cover. It didn't even attempt to stick to it, which is really kind of creepy weird. Also, I think the starter is bent. See that? See the angle difference? Maybe it's an optical illusion, but I think we're going to pull start this thing and then wait for me to take that out and see if it's got bent bolts in it at some point. But anyways, let's pop this thing open. I don't really have high hopes, but let's get this off of here. There we go. Standard bearing. The webbing doesn't look too bad. Actually, this side cover looks really decently made compared to other things we have found. The the cheaper oil plugs are a nice bonus. Why is this not shiny? These are always shiny. What is up with that? You can see the sintered steel casting edges and defects on the side. That's adorable. Well, let's pop the cam out. There we go. So, what does that say? I bet it says 168 on it. That's what a lot of these usually have, is some generic 168. Yep, there it is. 168. And nothing special about it, that's for sure. Spring, it looks like, is at least decent quality. It looks like your standard cam. Nothing overly impressive there. Whoa. Is that junk? What is that? Can I get my finger on it? Yeah, it is. Whatever that is, it's all kinds of junk. That's impressive. Well, I think at this point, we pop the connecting rod off, we pop the piston out, and we find out what it is that it actually uses. Hopefully nothing proprietary, and off camera I'll mic that out also. And then we'll do an ending to this before we throw it all together off camera and see what it sounds like. This has got to be one of the most beautiful little mongrels I have torn apart in a long time. Holy cow, somebody totally did a grab bag into the engine shenanigan world, shook it up, and made this thing. On a side note, I do like the head gasket that I found when I flipped that over. The cam is nothing special, it's just a standard Honda cam, but we already figured that anyway. But on the crank, piston, connecting rod side of life, I thought 100% this was going to end up being just your standard Ducar 212, generic. It's not. So one of these is a Predator piston. Obviously the pretty one on that side. The other is the one that we pulled out. Not only do they share model numbers that are printed on them and everything, besides the quality control of finishment, they even share the same R210 model type. They even share the same exact channels for oil and the same Honda pin size. So there's a reason why that's interesting to note. So on a Predator connecting rod and crank, the crank is a different size than a Honda, but the pin is the same size as a Honda. But this has a Honda pin and a Honda crank. So it's got a Predator 212 piston with a Honda connecting rod with a Honda crank with a Honda cam. But I'm not sure I'd really trust the quality control on any of them. But anyways, that's our breakdown. We're going to humchuck this menagerie of grab bag back together, and we're going to see what it sounds like with its horrifically castrated muffler. Looks like we're going to check out what it actually has for a charge coil, because, yeah, both of those bolts for the starter were bent to the point that this thing wasn't even actually remotely going to hit this. So I swapped that out. And I think every once in a while fate smiles on you, and we found some $1 oil at Dollar General. I think it's suiting for this engine and plays out nicely. Alright, maXpeedingrods. When the 11-year-old comes walking up and sees that I had to cut your intake in order to actually get the side panel off and says that is stupid, you guys failed. Even the 11-year-old knew that that was a dumb design. Alright, we're beta testing the new LOKITHOR J series. This is a J400, which is insanely overpowered for this thing. This thing's claim to fame is that unlike most of them that are cut off at about 600 cranking amp, This thing is capable of 1,000 cranking amp out of this little itty bitty box. So what we're going to do is we're going to hook up ground right there on the case. The positive is going to go right here on this bottom lug. Now when you want to bump it, the black and white wire, you're going to bump to the positive right here. So if we hold it down, it's going to go into override. Or not. Oh, I have to turn it on, I bet. There it goes. Now it's in override. Like I said, I'm beta testing the thing. Alright, so now we're going to give it a quick bump just to see it turn. Okay, so we're going to have John back off and we're going to see if it'll fire on its own. We've primed the carburetor. Everything should be good to go. And that's how you kill it. As you can see, this thing was vibrating all over the place. This is a horrific attempt at cutting into the Duromax 208 market. I will not condone buying this thing. This is horrible. This thing is junk. Spend the extra $40. Get the Duromax. Don't get into this. I was sent this as a sponsor. And when I responded back to them, oh, cool, I'll take it apart so I can show my subscribers. They sent me an email back saying, no, just put it on the machine and show that it runs. We don't do that here. That is a massive red flag. If you are not willing to have me rip your engine down to block and show its quality, you should probably not be getting a hold of me because this channel hides nothing. I don't care how expensive the motor is that you send me. I don't care how expensive the engine is that you send me, whatever you want to say. If you send it here, I'm ripping it down and I'm finding out the quality. Anyways, this has been an endeavor in order to look into one of the Ducar 212 clones that's on the market right now. There are hundreds of Ducar 212 clones fighting it out on the Amazon market right now. Avoid this one, hands down. We're going to install it on John's machine. We're going to run it because it was free and the Predator is dying. But I never would have bought this thing, nor do I condone buying it. Have fun, guys. Thanks for John for doing the filming.